The sun was setting on a warm August evening in Austin, Texas, when Kayla Monroe pulled up to her new apartment. The moving truck trailed behind her, loaded with a modest collection of secondhand furniture, Target bins, and photo frames filled with memories. College dorm snapshots, graduation day smiles, and Polaroids of 3 young women who believed their bond could survive anything. At 24, Kayla was stepping into what she believed would be a fresh chapter of independence, growth, and sisterhood. Her childhood had been turbulent. Her parents divorced when she was 10, and her mother, a devout Baptist, was strict to the point of suffocation. For Kayla, Austin offered a breath of fresh air, a city alive with art, youth, music, and freedom. But she wasn't doing it alone. Waiting at the door of the Maplewood Villas apartment complex were her 2 best friends, Jenna Castillo, 25, and Brianna Ellis, 24, waving excitedly, wine bottles in hand. The 3 had met during freshman orientation at the University of Texas and had clicked instantly. They were an unlikely trio: Kayla, the grounded and organized one; Jenna, the quiet and nurturing soul studying to become a social worker; and Brianna, the loud, charismatic extrovert whose TikTok dances were as famous on campus as her parties. During college, they had often talked about living together. "One day, when we're real adults," they used to say. Now, that dream had materialized in Unit 3B, a 2-bedroom apartment just 15 minutes from downtown. Jenna and Brianna had already been living there for 2 months and were thrilled that Kayla had finally decided to join them. Inside, the apartment was warm and inviting. Candles flickered on the kitchen counter. An open floor plan gave it a spacious feel despite its small size. The walls were decorated with fairy lights and Polaroids of their college days. In the living room, a felt letterboard hung above the TV. "Roomies for life, 2 hearts, 3B babes." That night, they celebrated with cheap rose and pizza on paper plates. Laughter echoed through the apartment. Brianna played music from her speaker. Jenna showed Kayla her new vision board. And Kayla, smiling as she unpacked her things, felt a deep sense of belonging. She posted a selfie of the 3 of them in the kitchen with the caption, "New place, same besties. This year is ours, clinking glasses, yellow heart, #RoomieLife, #FreshStart." From the outside, everything looked perfect. But even in that first week, there were small signs, nothing too alarming, just subtle shifts. Kayla noticed how Jenna often tiptoed around Brianna, going quiet when Brianna spoke. And Brianna, once warm and welcoming, sometimes made cutting remarks that felt more like warnings than jokes. Still, Kayla brushed it off. After all, every friendship had its ups and downs, especially when living together. The apartment lease was for a year, and Kayla was determined to make it work. She had a new remote job as a project coordinator, a new city to explore, and her best friends by her side. What could go wrong? By the 3rd night, she had unpacked everything and decorated her small room. On her desk sat a leather-bound journal, a gift from her sister. On the first page, she wrote, "August 14th. Finally moved in with the girls. It's weird how fast it happened. I'm excited, but also nervous. I don't know, something feels off with Bree lately. Maybe it's just stress? I hope this was the right move." Unbeknownst to her, that journal would become a key piece of evidence in a murder investigation just 3 weeks later. What began as a new beginning was already unraveling, quietly, secretly, beneath the surface. And by the time anyone realized, it would be far too late. The first week passed like a honeymoon. The girls went grocery shopping together, decorated the apartment with thrift store finds, and held movie nights with popcorn and wine. They FaceTimed old college friends to show off their new space, and even planned a weekend girls' trip to the lake. But by the 2nd week, the gloss began to dull. It started with Brianna's moods. One morning, Kayla found her furiously scrubbing the kitchen counter while blasting angry trap music. When Kayla tried to joke about cleaning rage, Brianna snapped, "Maybe if some of us cleaned around here, I wouldn't have to." It was 7:15 a.m. Jenna, always the peacemaker, tried to mediate. "Bree, come on. You know Kayla just got here. Let's not turn this into a thing." But Brianna wasn't interested in diffusing tension. She stormed off to her room, slamming the door. From behind the thin apartment walls, The thud of a dresser drawer being yanked open echoed like a warning. Later that day, Jenna texted Kayla. Jenna, she's been like this for weeks. I didn't want to say anything and scare you off. It's like she's got two personalities. Kayla, I'm not scared off, just confused. I thought things were good between you two. Jenna, they were, until recently. Kayla didn't press further, but questions swirled in her mind. What had changed? The answer came in fragments. One night, after Brianna went out with friends and didn't come home, Jenna opened up. They were sitting on the couch, sipping wine, the glow of the TV flickering across their faces. I think she's jealous of you, Jenna said flatly. Kayla blinked. Of me? Why? Jenna hesitated. I don't know. She said some weird things before you moved in. Like that she thought things were better when it was just us two. That you were going to take me away from her. It was possessive, controlling even. Kayla was stunned. The idea that Brianna, bold, popular, always the life of the party, could be threatened by her seemed absurd. But Jenna looked dead serious. She's not who she used to be, Jenna added. Since graduation, she's changed. She drinks more. She picks fights. Sometimes I feel like I don't know her anymore. They sat in silence after that, the air thick with unspoken dread. A few nights later, it escalated. Kayla had just gotten out of the shower when she heard yelling. She stepped into the hallway and saw Brianna cornering Jenna in the kitchen. Her face was flushed, eyes wild, voice raised. I saw the texts, Jenna. Don't lie to me. Jenna tried to calm her. They were just texts. Me and Kayla were talking about rent stuff. Oh, really? Brianna hissed. Because it looked a lot like you were bitching about me behind my back. Kayla froze. She hadn't known Brianna had seen their texts. Brianna, we weren't trying to go behind your back, Kayla said carefully. We were just trying to figure out how to talk to you about the tension lately. Brianna turned on her, eyes narrowing. Don't act innocent. You've been manipulating her since day one. You always want to be the favorite. The room pulsed with silence. Then Jenna whispered, This isn't healthy, Bri. That's when Brianna shoved a glass off the counter. It shattered against the floor. Kayla flinched. Jenna stared at her in horror. Brianna just stood there, breathing hard, unblinking. That night, Kayla started locking her bedroom door. August 23rd. I think Brianna needs help. She scares me when she gets like that. Jenna says it's been going on for a while. But what if it's more than just mood swings? What if she's dangerous? I don't want to believe that. But the way she looked at me today, it didn't feel like Bri. Felt like someone else. As the days rolled into the third week, the apartment that once felt like a dream home began to feel like a pressure cooker. Brianna's outbursts became more frequent. She drank late into the night, sometimes blasting music at 2 a.m., sometimes crying behind her door, and other times laughing to herself like nothing was wrong. Jenna wanted to leave. Kayla wanted to confront her. Neither of them had time, because by the end of the third week, the apartment would be a crime scene, and only one of them would still be breathing. By the third week, Kayla barely recognized the apartment she'd once dreamed about. The vibrant fairy lights seemed dimmer now. The laughter that once filled the rooms had long vanished. The scent of scented candles was replaced by something sour. The smell of unresolved tension and mental unraveling. Brianna had become volatile. She slept during the day, partied or paced all night, and picked fights over trivial things. Jenna and Kayla started whispering behind closed doors, communicating more through text than speech. Every sound Brianna made, from a slammed door to footsteps in the hallway, sent a ripple of anxiety through both of them. The final straw began with a social media post. Brianna posted an Instagram story of Kayla's locked door with the caption, "Funny how the snakes always hide behind wood." Snake locked. It was gone within an hour, but not before several mutual friends screenshotted it and sent it to Kayla. Kayla was furious. She confronted Brianna, cautiously yet firmly. "I don't know what's going on with you, Bri, but this isn't okay. You're threatening me. You're humiliating me." Brianna didn't yell this time. Instead, she smiled, a slow, eerie smile, and leaned against the fridge. You think you're some kind of victim, huh? She said. You don't know anything about what I've been through. Don't you dare try to turn Jenna against me. Kayla didn't respond. She left the room quietly and wrote everything down in her journal. She was beginning to sense it. Not just the instability, but the danger. What she didn't know was that Brianna had started reading her journal. One night, when Kayla had forgotten to lock her door, Brianna slipped inside. She read every word, every thought, every private confession. It wasn't just invasion, it was fuel. And something inside Brianna snapped. Jenna had had enough. On September 2nd, she told Kayla she was moving out. Her aunt in San Antonio had offered her a place to stay, and she was packing by the end of the week. She needs help, Kayla, Jenna said, zipping up a duffel bag. But we can't give it to her. She's dangerous. She's not Brianna anymore. Kayla agreed, but part of her still felt guilty. They were all supposed to be best friends. Weren't they? She wrestled with the thought of talking to Brianna one more time, of telling her that they cared, that she could get help. She never got the chance. September 4th began like any other tense morning. Jenna left for work early. Kayla worked remotely in her bedroom. Brianna stayed in her room most of the day, blasting music and muttering on FaceTime with someone Kayla didn't recognize. Around 7:30 p.m., Jenna returned. The three girls crossed paths briefly in the kitchen. The air was suffocating with unspoken animosity. Kayla retreated to her room and FaceTimed her sister, Emma, around 9 p.m. She was venting, talking about moving out, about how scared she was to sleep at night. Emma later told police that Kayla seemed anxious but determined. By 10:15 p.m., she was no longer answering her phone. Jenna was last seen alive at 10:40 p.m. Neighbors reported hearing raised voices, a scream, and something heavy falling. But no one called the police. Not in a busy apartment complex where noise was just noise. What happened over the next few hours is still partially unknown. But what's clear is that sometime between midnight and dawn, Brianna Ellis killed both of her roommates. Kayla was found strangled to death in her bed. Jenna had suffered blunt force trauma to the head and neck and was found in the kitchen, partially covered with a bedsheet. But here's the chilling part. Brianna didn't flee. She stayed in the apartment for nearly 24 hours, living alongside the bodies, eating, posting cryptic quotes on Instagram, and answering messages like nothing happened. It wasn't until Kayla's sister, Emma, drove from Dallas after not hearing from her for over 18 hours, that the nightmare came to light. At 7:13 p.m. on September 5th, Emma used a spare key to enter the apartment. Her screams could be heard from the parking lot. The 911 call recorded Emma sobbing into the phone, barely coherent, repeating, "They're dead? Oh my God. She's here. She's just sitting there. She didn't even run." Police arrived within minutes. Brianna was found calmly watching Netflix in the living room. Her hands were stained with dried blood. She looked up at the officers and said, without emotion, "I had to. They were turning on me. It was only a matter of time." The sight that greeted first responders on the evening of September 5th would haunt even the most seasoned detectives. Kayla Moore, 24, was found in her bedroom, lying stiff on the mattress, her lips slightly parted as if frozen mid-breath. Her eyes were wide open. There were signs of a struggle, scratches on her neck, broken nails, blood spots on the carpet, but there were no defensive wounds. The coroner later concluded she had been attacked in her sleep. Jenna Wallace, 25, lay face down in the kitchen. A cast-iron skillet, the likely murder weapon, was found beside her. Blood had pooled around her head, soaked into the tile grout, and spattered across the lower cabinets. Her hands were bruised, indicating she tried to shield herself. But what chilled investigators most wasn't the brutality of the murders. It was Brianna Ellis, sitting on the couch, cross-legged, still wearing the same hoodie she wore in an Instagram story earlier that day. The same one that had a cryptic caption, "Snakes get what they deserve. Snake drop of blood #peace. When police asked her to stand, she didn't resist. She looked blank, robotic, even slightly amused. Her only words as they handcuffed her, I thought you'd come sooner. Inside the apartment, investigators uncovered a deeply disturbing scene. Along with the bodies, they found a blood-streaked copy of Kayla's journal, its final entry written just hours before her death. If anything happens to me, I hope someone tells the truth. I think she wants us gone. I'm scared. A burned notebook in the kitchen trash bin, partially melted but still readable in sections. It was filled with Brianna's erratic, obsessive writings. Phrases like, "They're not my friends anymore. I'm not crazy. They're gaslighting me. If they want me gone, I'll go, but not alone. She sleeps like a lamb. Lambs don't fight when you cut their throats." Her search history, which included alarming queries like, "How to kill quietly? Cast iron pan versus skull. What happens if you kill in self-defense but no one sees it?" Brianna was booked into the Travis County Jail on 2 counts of first-degree murder. At her arraignment, she pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. The courtroom was filled with gasps and whispers as the judge read the charges. Emma Moore, Kayla's sister, sat in the front row wearing Kayla's favorite blue sweater, tears silently rolling down her face. Jenna's mother collapsed in grief outside the courthouse, too distraught to speak to reporters. Brianna's defense attorney, a seasoned public defender, stated, "My client suffered a severe mental break. This was not premeditated in the traditional sense. She was paranoid, delusional, and believed she was in real danger. We will pursue a psychological evaluation and file for an insanity defense." But the district attorney had a different stance. This was calculated. This was cold. She killed 2 women who trusted her. No hallucination justifies strangling a sleeping friend or beating another to death. This wasn't insanity. It was evil. The story made national headlines. 3 best friends move in together. Only one survives. Jealousy turned deadly. Texas woman kills roommates in chilling murder. Roommate rage or mental illness. The Brianna Ellis case divides the nation. TikTok and Reddit exploded with theories. Some insisted Brianna had always shown signs of narcissistic and borderline personality traits. Others pointed to possible undiagnosed schizophrenia. A few claimed Jenna and Kayla had pushed her too far, that 3-way friendships always implode. But most agreed on one thing: the tragedy was preventable. Emma Moore became a loud advocate for mandatory mental health screenings in college dormitories and early intervention funding. She told local reporters, "I don't want another sibling buried because someone said, 'She's just being dramatic.' Brianna needed help, and Kayla needed protection." Court-ordered psychiatrists conducted a 3-month-long evaluation. Brianna was diagnosed with severe paranoid delusional disorder with psychotic features, though they stopped short of declaring her legally insane. Their report detailed a disturbing dissent. Delusions that Kayla and Jenna were conspiring to replace her. Auditory hallucinations. Voices she described as girls whispering behind walls. Intense paranoia that her food was being poisoned and her texts were being monitored. Deep-seated abandonment trauma, likely triggered by Jenna's decision to move out. They concluded she was mentally ill, but not incapable of understanding her actions were wrong. The insanity plea was denied. By February 2024, Brianna Ellis was declared competent to stand trial. The trial was scheduled for late spring. Prosecutors planned to push for life without parole, arguing she was manipulative and dangerous. The defense team prepared to argue diminished capacity, hoping to reduce the charge to second-degree murder. Meanwhile, the 2 families, once connected by their daughter's deep friendship, now stood in the courtroom as grieving strangers. As the trial approached, one thing became clear: this wasn't just a case about murder. It was about friendship, trust, mental health, and how ignoring the signs can lead to an irreversible tragedy. The trial of Brianna Ellis began on May 12, 2024, inside the Travis County Courthouse. The courtroom was packed. Media vans lined the street. Protesters stood outside holding signs that read, "Justice for Kayla and Jenna," while others chanted, "Mental health is not a crime." Inside, every eye was fixed on the young woman at the center of it all. Brianna, now 26, entered the courtroom with her dark hair tied back, wearing a gray blazer provided by the public defender's office. She looked thinner than she had months earlier. Her expression was unreadable, stoic, detached, almost ghost-like. Her trial would span 9 weeks, revealing the complex, disturbing, and heartbreaking descent of a once inseparable friendship trio. The prosecution didn't mince words. District Attorney Vanessa King opened with a chilling line. 3 women moved in together to chase dreams. 2 ended up in the morgue. The 3rd planned it. King painted Brianna as a deeply jealous, emotionally unstable woman who spiraled into obsession and paranoia when she felt excluded. This was not a psychotic break. This was revenge. She knew what she was doing. She murdered her best friends, brutally, violently, and then waited on the couch for us to find her. The defense, led by attorney Michael Serrano, countered. This was the unraveling of a sick mind. Ms. Ellis did not wake up one day and decide to be a killer. She was suffering from untreated psychosis. What she did was horrible, yes, but it was not cold-blooded murder. Over the next several days, jurors heard heart-wrenching testimonies from family members and friends who described the months leading up to the murders. Emma Moore, Kayla's sister, testified tearfully about the strange change in the house dynamic. Kayla told me Brianna was getting clingy, that she didn't want her to go out without her. She said she felt like she was being watched, that Brianna would open her mail, look through her trash, accuse her of things that didn't make sense. David Wallace, Jenna's younger brother, described a phone call just 10 days before her death. She said she didn't trust Brianna anymore. She said she wanted to move out soon. She was scared but didn't want to make it awkward. Text messages were entered into evidence, showing growing tension. Jenna to Kayla, B is acting weird again. She said I poisoned her food. I'm done. Kayla to Jenna, we need to talk. I think she went through my journal. The trial's most intense and debated moments came during the psychological testimony. The defense brought in Dr. Lillian Frazier, a forensic psychiatrist who had spent 11 hours interviewing Brianna. Dr. Frazier testified that Brianna suffered from a severe schizoaffective disorder and was in the midst of a paranoid psychotic episode at the time of the murders. She believed they were conspiring to have her institutionalized. She thought they were plotting to erase her identity. These were not petty jealousies. These were delusions she could not escape. The prosecution, however, cross-examined with lethal precision. They pointed out that Brianna had searched online for methods of silent killing days before the attack, deleted damning texts from her phone history, locked the apartment door after the murders, and wiped down key surfaces. Prosecutor Vanessa King asked, if she was too delusional to understand right from wrong, why clean up? Why lock the door? Why delete messages? That's not psychosis. That's self-preservation. The prosecution's expert, Dr. Glenn Hargrove, concurred. She may have mental health issues, yes, but she still knew what she was doing was wrong. That's the legal standard. That's why this is murder. One of the prosecution's most damning pieces of evidence came from the body cam footage taken on the night of the arrest. In it, Brianna can be heard murmuring to herself while being placed in the back of a patrol car. I did what I had to do. They were going to ruin me. Now they can't. The footage was played in court. Gasps echoed from the gallery. Her tone was calm. Her voice did not tremble. When asked later during interrogation if she had any regrets, Brianna replied, I regret trusting them. They were fake. I just wanted peace. After weeks of expert debate, forensic analysis, and emotional testimony, both sides gave their final words to the jury. The prosecution pleaded, you've seen the evidence. You've heard the voices of the dead. Do not let her mental illness become a free pass for murder. The defense quietly but powerfully urged compassion. You can hold someone accountable and still recognize the illness behind their actions. Brianna Ellis needs treatment, not a cage. On July 18, 2024, the jury returned after 3 days of deliberation. Guilty on both counts of first-degree murder. Brianna Ellis showed no reaction. She simply blinked. Sentencing was scheduled for August. Emma Moore embraced Jenna's mother, tears streaming. Reporters swarmed. Some cheered the decision. Others questioned the lack of empathy for mental illness. One protester held a sign that read, "Brianna needed help, not hate." But for the families, no verdict could bring back their daughters. All that was left was sentencing, and a lifetime of what-ifs. On August 22, 2024, nearly a year after the horrific double homicide, the same courtroom that had hosted weeks of agonizing testimony once again filled with sobbing families, flashing cameras, and a jury of 12 ordinary citizens changed forever by the burden of justice. At the center of it all was Brianna Ellis, now a convicted double murderer, facing the moment that would define the rest of her life. Before sentencing, the court permitted the families of Kayla Monroe and Jenna Matthews to speak directly to the woman who had taken their daughters. Kayla's father, Robert Monroe, took the stand first. His hands trembled as he unfolded his letter. "Kayla was my only daughter. She had dreams. She wanted to open her own photography studio. You snuffed her out like she was disposable. You didn't just kill her, you killed us too. Every day is a fog now. I hope you hear her scream every night, like we do." Next came Debbie Matthews, Jenna's mother. Her voice cracked as she read, "You were supposed to be her best friend. You ate meals at our table. You slept under our roof. And you butchered my baby girl in the apartment she called home. Why? Because of voices in your head? That's not sickness. That's evil wearing its prettiest mask." Brianna sat expressionless, her eyes locked on the floor. She didn't cry. She didn't move. Her attorney, Michael Serrano, once again appealed for compassion during sentencing. "My client is ill. She has been evaluated by 4 mental health professionals. She has expressed remorse. She does not belong in a maximum security prison. She belongs in a psychiatric facility where she can be treated. Prison won't rehabilitate her. It will break her." He proposed a reduced sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years and mandatory psychiatric treatment. When Judge Cynthia Romer returned with her sentencing decision, the courtroom fell silent. "Ms. Ellis, you were found guilty by a jury of your peers for the cold and calculated murder of 2 women who trusted you. Regardless of your mental state, you took lives brutally and with intention. This court recognizes your mental illness, but that illness does not absolve the act. Sentence: 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, sobs, applause, and disbelief collided into a single moment. As deputies cuffed Brianna and led her away, a single word escaped her lips, barely audible but caught on the courtroom mic. "Sorry." It was unclear who she was speaking to, her victims, their families, or perhaps to herself. Brianna was sent to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice's Mountain View Unit, a maximum security facility for women with a psychiatric ward. There, she remained under suicide watch for the first 6 months. According to internal reports leaked in late 2024, Brianna began therapy and was diagnosed officially with paranoid-type schizoaffective disorder and borderline personality disorder. Despite the diagnosis, no appeal was filed. Her legal team accepted the court's decision. Occasionally, she wrote letters to herself. Pages of disconnected thoughts, some referencing Kayla and Jenna. None were ever sent to the victims' families. In one unsent note found during a cell inspection, she wrote, "I didn't mean to become the monster. I just wanted them to love me the way I loved them."